culture has manufactured a severity of disquiet, like hemorrhaging on our bottoms of black women. It has afflicted black women. The Bible says that husbands, when you don't listen to your wives, even your prayers are going to be hindered. That God created Eve for Adam to be a helper suitable, and that Adam is to love her the way that Christ loved the church. So, however, it is Adam's curse to rule over a woman, while it is Eve's curse to desire her husband, basically at all costs, even if it is at the expense of worshiping her God, the one true God. So the problem within black culture is the namby-pamby disposition of women who just take a lot of rubbish in their stride. While the problem is that our men rule us with an iron fist, because of the fact that they are rich with adultery and fornication. They are rich with adultery, fornication, and witchcraft and heresies. And this has caused an Eve that wants a husband by any means necessary to just accept all this nonsense, while an Adam that wants to just rule a woman, ignoring that the second Adam said love her as Christ loved the church. Yeah. While an Adam that wants to rule her is telling her, take what I have to offer or leave it. But bottom line is, you are not going to survive without me if you leave it. There is a megalomaniacal controlling spirit on the part of our men. And this controlling megalomaniacal spirit has been induced by the gods of black people that have taught them witchcraft. Witchcraft has been a thing in the black community from the very get-go. It is not something that we inherited. It is not something that we learned from other cultures. It is something that our gods rocked up and taught us from the get-go. Just like Egyptian gods rocking up and teaching them Horus, Pharaoh worship, whatever. Yeah, we were given ancestral worshipping gods. We were given mere mortal gods, okay? People that we wanted to believe in some kind of spirituality because God has written eternity in our hearts, so we knew that's something that this is a going concern, that people don't really truly die. We knew that because God wrote eternity on our hearts, but instead of searching the one true God out and finding him, we rather sought to fill that empty void of eternity lingering forever and ever and ever and ever with ancestors. We created an eternal God because we knew that he existed. He was written on our hearts. On our hearts, but it was the wrong God. It was not even one God. You are polytheistic. You worship many gods. But if your gods isolate, single out for protection and care and favor any single unique gender, he is not God. If your God does not love men and women equally, he created us, albeit with different functions, nonetheless equal. If your God does not take up the cause of men and women alike, children, whatever, if your God favors only one group of men, one group of people, above another, he is not really God. And in black culture, the gods of black culture, the gods of ancestral worship across Africa, yes, like it meant, they hate God, they hate women. The gods of black culture have no regard for the emotions of women. And God made women more emotional than men, meaning that the depth of exquisite sorrow and pain that we can feel as black women is especially high tea because our gods don't care that we feel. That when you prick us, we bleed. Black gods hate women because black gods promulgate theories, doctrines of demons, destructive heresies that cater to the needs mostly of men than of women. Black gods literally don't care about the plight of women. They don't. Ancestral worship is so misogynistic that as black women just honoring your culture, you are made to ignore because badimo ba approvile. Abo mama betu are constantly, even though they in and of themselves endured a lot of rubbish from our dads, they're constantly inspiring young women to hotela some of the grandest abominations under heaven. We are told we are told to just take a man, noma aza nabantwana by 7 from 7 different baby mamas. We are told to take in our stride the fact that men sometimes want to taste the goods before they put a ring on your finger, and never mind tasting the goods, they insist before We've got men who don't care for the fact that we want stability and security, And so they insist, because they're fornicators and adulterers, that we just give them kids in Jefela before he will engage you in marriage. Like, I had a friend that had a guy rock up and insist, even though she was convicted that she didn't want children outside of wedlock, he insisted on umntwana until, even though she was strongly convicted, wamnikeza never mind 1 child but 2, and this guy never married her. He already had a baby. He was already a baby daddy ngaphandle somewhere, evidencing that he hits it and quits. Uyahamba nje makaqeda ukuplanta a seed inside a woman's belly. But he convinced her how, again, the black gods, how they love witchcraft. How you grab a woman whose faculties are intact and has rightly made a decision that I don't want to have a child out of wedlock. How do you take a woman like that is still in her 20s? So she got plenty of time. How do you grab her and make her give you 2 babies? Of course, you change her mind with black God's idea of control and manipulation, megalomaniacal witchcraft. Witchcraft. Like, uthandwa imithi. People love witchcraft in the black community, and it makes us very, very insufferable. It makes black people insufferable. Do you understand? The way there is so much manipulation and a tactlessness in it, and a coerciveness. Like witchcraft, Satanish, man, guys. Satan is the god of this world. He blinds the minds of unbelievers. He is not, however, the creator. The creator is God on high. He created ex nihilo, meaning that he created everything out of nothing. Okay? Yeah. So the Lord is the one that can spur up wonderful, beautiful, butterfly-giving feelings in your heart for a man, and vice versa. When then you suddenly have got butterflies in your stomach, but it's not really butterflies? When then you suddenly have an attraction to a man, but it's not really attraction? On that day, my sister, you are not in love. On that day, you are in prison. When somebody has given you sentiment that is not yours. When all of a sudden you want to lay with Jabu, Temba, or Sfeso. On that day, my girl, you are not in love. You are in prison. You're in prison. And black men love to imprison women. It's a black problem. It stems from long ago, where it is that we are just, like I said, black gods hate black women. And when you are not loved as a woman, you desire being for your husband as Eve, who has been cursed with that. Therefore, if you are not loved, you are going to hate. Hi there, what's up? Finally, my power bank works the way that I want it to work, because I've got the right USB. Anyway, I'm outside now to complete this discussion. Okay, my septum piercing is out of whack. Where was I? Yes, I was speaking about how it is that black gods, they don't like women. They don't like women. I did a video some time ago where it is that I was. Let me just put my power bank underneath my armpit so that it's more easy to carry. Yeah, I spoke about how it is, women, black women. I was trying to implore you to, I apologize for the wind, give your lives over to God. Because if you don't have the sufficient protections that you are in dire need of from the gods of black culture. Like, how else can I posture this particular argument? Only look, for instance, I'm 40, right? Years old. I'm like a whole Hlongwane. And I spoke about how it is that a lot of times women my age, men who encounter us, just kind of glide right by. They walk right by, not so much because we're not beautiful anymore, because black don't crack, okay? But because we're angry, we're hostile, we're sad, because we had been held hostage by other men and we're just like really upset. We are expecting better behavior from men, and they feel as if though they don't owe it to us because sibadala anyway, says Kukil. Your sorrow. Ukwata loku wako. Akusokuyenzela anything. Ukwata hoa how. Sis Karabo. It's not going to do anything for you, because at the end of the day, and upon being as ancient as you are, frankly, I consider you arrogant to think that now I'm going to change my ways for you. So they just go on right ahead and grab kids, like much younger women, in order to embitter us. And it works. It does work. Hence why hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. But it should not work, because it causes women to be very mean-spirited. It causes women to be very mean-spirited towards Basadi Baba. Do you understand? Especially young women. And my thing about that is, according to the scriptures, young women, we are supposed to train them, raise them up, help them be bigger, help them be better. My acne is just so astronomical. Anyway, help them be bigger, help them be better, and help them raise children, help them love husbands, help them. We've got a job. Okay, older women have got a job towards younger women, and that job cannot be done if older women don't love younger women. You cannot successfully train up a woman in the way that they should go if at all in and of yourself you don't have any real good best interest in your heart towards that young woman. You can't despise young women and anticipate that yeah, you can't despise young women and anticipate that God is going to be okay with you. What we need to aspire towards is godliness, because that's the only thing that gets to heaven. The most imperative thing here is for us to pass the audition that is the earth, that we might enter heaven. So if something threatens your heaven-bound state, if something threatens your eternal soul, you've got to actively guard it out and cut it off. And not loving women, which is an explicit instruction by God, for older women towards younger women, not doing that is detrimental to your soul. And black women, you end up so embittered later on in life that you are frankly unloving towards old kids, young women, right? For no other reason than the fact that you got lamp-basted by a bushveld of misogynistic men that did not learn how to love women in Christ. Your lack of patience is your biggest problem, black women. And it's not just black women. Women in general can't wait for marriage. Women in general are in such a rush to walk down the aisle that it's to their detriment when they end up marrying horrible men. But it is not women in general that have got a culture of men whose gods hate women. So white women, Indian women, women across all other racial groups other than black, essentially have got better odds than us when it comes to their experiences under men. They have got better odds than us when it comes to their experiences under men. Look, even if these women end up divorced from husbands, things just kind of fall apart, they go awry, right? Very rarely are you going to find the level of sabotage and neglect and abandonment on the part of white women, for instance, over daughters. Very rarely are you going to find white women just ditching each other, leaving each other out on a limb to essentially suffocate under a tyranny of misogyny. It is black girls that leave black girls to die. So something obviously is inspiring this much ridiculousness in black women against other black women. There is something so dire that is messing with us as black women, that it is causing us an excruciating abandonment complex for other black women. It is so bad that even after the divorce and whatever might be the treacherous experiences that they endure under men, no other race does this to their women. There is something that is making black women, never mind angry black women, but abandoning black women. Lesia basadi babang komoraho. You leave women behind. And I'm here to give an explanation or an account for why that even happens. Okay? I'm not here to bash men. I'm here to bash ungodly men. That's what you must understand. Your problem is ungodliness. Your issue is ungodliness. The thing that's eating you whole as like a maggot. It's ugnathandu Jesu. Impatience messes with all of us, but the ramifications for certain people upon being impatient are far more extreme than others. And our impatience in the black community to wait on God for just about everything that we need is killing women. Well, how shall I reorder this particular discussion? Think, for instance, when you were a kid on the come up, okay? When you were a young woman, remember how maybe I can actually sit. I don't know. I enjoy walking. I don't know. Yeah. Ish. No, maybe not. All of us, when we were growing up, the guys that we were with no, never mind just with, but our peers, like boys that were our age group, you never could have imagined them turning out like this. You literally could never have seen it. You could never have seen it. Every boy has their own little dumbnesses, their nuances, because they're still young kids growing up, right? Across the board. But what they mature to, what they metamorphosize to, it's like they're put in some kind of a weaved egg, a pod, I don't know, like a, you know, in like a spawning cocoon. Yeah, it's like they put in some kind of a cocoon that upon hatching out of it, out comes something extremely menacing. But when they're boys, when they're kids, they're so much better. They're so much better. Like the boys that we grew up with, the dudes that we grew up with, some of the people that hurt me are guys that I was on the come up with, alright? Yo, the way they were so sweet in school, the way that they were so funny and just, hi man, come on, no. Like, I'm not about to play, I'm not joking, leave me alone, tapping. They were irritating because, you know, boys and girls find each other irritating, etc. at different times, but they were not destructive and narcissistic and with these intentions against women that were just extremely hostile. They did not share the sentiments that they now today wear. In the, all the way up until, I would say, maybe like 20s, all of the 20s, all the way up until maybe like at the age of 30, okay? They were just generally decent. Like, if at all you were not into randomly dating gender-based violence guys, like guys that slapped you silly or whatever, you tended to be largely okay? You tended to be largely secure. It's what I'm trying to get at. You know, like it was generally expected that a guy, it's not right for Yena to cheat. You know, and Hachida, everybody frowned on it. It was a taboo for everyone. All women were like, oh, how dare he? Everybody walked around basically with a general demeanor of, it's wrong. It was not about so much the deed that was problematic. The thing that was problematic was, the deed was problematic, right? And everybody agreed. But what's going on right now is that which are problematic deeds are agreed upon by people as generally acceptable. Abafazi, the things that we once used to frown upon on the come up with other men too are accepted as you're overreacting. They are looked at in we are overreacting. Like cheating used to be a problem when we were all on the come up all the way up until the age of 30. And then it just started to be something that we need to just take. What changes your minds like that? What makes you now all of a sudden so happy to embrace something that everyone generally agreed, Tepo when he does it is a jerk. Jabu when he does it is a jerk. The thing that made Jabu and Tepo a jerk now, strangely, are all men in the black community and all women, let me say a lot of men and a lot of women in the black community, for the sake of not generalizing, of the imagination that as time progresses, it's okay for certain things to happen. Abafazi become more increasingly accepting of being shared with multiple men. Not with multiple men, sorry. Of sharing a man with multiple women. Women become all of a sudden happy to take this in their stride as time progresses. Men become more brazen to basically proliferate this as an agenda, and women become more docile to the acceptance of it. It's just trashy. Do you understand? It's entirely problematic. It does not make any sense at all. And yet we're taking it in our stride. How in the world is a conglomerate of women in such a severity of groupthink? It's so bad that women betray each other in the climate of accepting that which we ought not accept. They betray each other. However, the end result of all this activity is the bitterness of women so exquisitely that they can't walk in their God-ordained purpose to, once they get to a certain age, raise up young women to be bigger and better than that. We have a responsibility to raise up young women to be bigger and better than that. We have to teach them how to be wives, raise kids, all that jazz. And yet we're not doing it because we are deliberately setting other women up for failure. And the reason why we set them up for failure is because it doesn't matter what your culture teaches you. What you feel that you feel in your heart of hearts is always going to resonate. It's always going to pierce through. It's always going to be the thing that's rather informing your decisions. We ignore our God-ordained way of being in favor of doctrines of demons and destructive heresies, in favor of trainings and teachings that come from another diabolical world that is, however, trying to convince us that this is okay. We train ourselves okayness and acceptance of nonsense at the expense of what we deep down inside feel, at the expense of what we deep down inside have been ordained by God to expect, ordained by God to desire. The Lord has created us very ontologically a particular way, and we cannot mediate from it, nor can you deviate from it. We cannot successfully deviate from the way that God created us to think. Yes, we can, but what I'm trying to explain rather is that what is the baseline, whatever causes disquiet in your heart, whatever makes you uncomfortable is only that way because your conscience is speaking volumes. The invisible qualities of God are all over creation. There is the law of God written on your heart. Eternity is written all over your heart, and you are disquieted because you're not aligned to the will of God. So that which is the disquiet in us because of a lack of alignment to the will of God, we are ignoring it in favor of cultural nuances, doctrines of demons, destructive heresies, trainings by gods not of heaven. Well, there are no gods of heaven other than the one true God, but what I'm trying to explain to you is that the teachings of demons, the teachings of fallen angels, of spirits that are not of God, are unwholesome. The teachings of spirits that are not of God are diabolical. The teachings of spirits that are not of God are antagonistic to our rudimentary basic gut feeling, the gut feeling of which is a shield of protection to help us recover to what it is that we ought to recover to. God, who we are supposed to rather look at, is always speaking through disquiet. I can't say that enough. Through uncomfortableness, and yet abafazi are just happy to ignore the itch in their bones, the thing, man. By shifta kole sighting in order to embrace a culture. Self-denial is a thing, ne? In not black culture, sorry, but just generally, even in God, like we have to self-deny, but we self-deny the flesh, and when we self-deny the flesh, we agree, our spirit understands that this is a good thing. Like when you are fasting, it's painful, it's not easy to be hungry, but we inherently understand that it's not problematic. We don't feel guilty for fasting, or we don't feel uncomfortable, we don't feel like disquieted, you know, like just wrestled, like uneasy. We don't feel that when we fast. It's a self-denial. It is the hurting of the flesh, but we don't feel some kind of way when we do it. We don't feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be fasting. Maybe fasting is wrong. Something just doesn't feel right with me fasting. That's not how we feel about fasting, because it is a good thing. Self-denial is a good thing spiritually, and it is approved by God. But when something makes you feel like, I can show like when you just like gut feel, like you don't have, like I'm using fasting as an example because it's a form of self-denial, right? To think that because your gods say this is how you need to be. And so when you deny what is your true desire in favor of what your gods embrace or accept of you, when then that thing makes you get a gut feeling that is like, hey man, something Jade, I can't beg you, Lana. You can't compare that to fasting. You can't compare that to the kind of self-denial that avoiding pornography or avoiding sex before marriage is. All like sex before marriage and fasting is a form of self-denial, but nobody feels some kind of way like something's wrong when they are actively avoiding porn, or when they're actively avoiding masturbation, actively avoiding sex before marriage. You feel like you are achieving something good, like you're doing well. After your first day, your first month, your first year of celibacy, you feel really good for achieving success in that regard, because it is a healthy self-denial that is godly. But to self-deny yourself the protection of your emotions as a woman, because you're busy embracing being a second wife to some guy, thinking ukuthi amadlozi enu are happy, and so you self-deny your peace and your tranquility and your quietness in a marriage with a man that loves you the way that God loves the church. It's not the same as fasting, because that gives you a gut feel. That makes you feel like something. This here feels sinfully wrong. Something about it just does not add up, because it is ignoring your basic needs as a woman. It is ignoring your wiring, the makeup of who it is that you have been made to be in the image of God. It is ignoring your emotions. It's ignoring all that, just like ignoring your hunger because you are fasting. Black women then go on right ahead to equate, to imagine that ignoring their desire to be exclusively loved by a man, like the tantamount of fasting, because that's your self-denial according to the gods of black culture. All you need to do is look at just to prove what black gods hate women. And so basically, if at all they hate any single demographic, they can't be gods, is how it is that young men on the come up are generally decent, bashap, and we get along. But somewhere along the way, we divide, man. There's something that makes a diametrical opposition between black girls and black boys, black women and black men. There is something that creates such a gulf between us that it can't be healthy. It's written in God's word that he hates those who sow discord between brothers. The gods of black culture sow discord between men and women. And it also creates discord between women who approve of the black god's ideology versus those who are vocally, basically speaking out against izinto ebasiyenza zona. Those of us who are on the camp of, guys, we can't just take this in our stride. Kunabafazi abanye in the black community that are literally like, anithanda abo God benu, or you are naive. They call us naive. They call us iffy, or if not iffy or naive, but just uzobona. Like they literally look at us like, one day you will see. One day, Karabo, now you're going to get on this bandwagon. You are going to eventually see a vantage point. Just basically, those women who are in the camp of taking this nonsense in their stride are telling those of us who are vocalizing our disquiet and our displeasure with this as walking in an unnecessarily heavy, hard path of getting to the exact same conclusion. They are on the path of least resistance, whereas we are looked at as forced and eventually retrobona. This thing can't end well unless you just capitulate to it. You must just glide in it. They say, Karabo, just take the path of least resistance. Take the path, girl, of least resistance, so you won't be fought and wrestled by something that's eventually going to catch up with you. They fight the thing that we refuse to accept. In other words, that gut feeling, that's like, I can't. Otherwise, check into psychiatric hospital. I'm going to end up in Fontaine over Munna. Please, I'm not going to do it. Yeah, they ignore that. When you can tell that you're going to end up hospitalized with a mental illness, they say the only reason, girl, you end up with a mental illness is because you don't want to relax in something that's the only way to be. Take it from me, girl, I'm 35. And so for those reasons, I've seen it. I've seen life. Go naive to think you can fight this thing. Because if you look around, girl, look around. Wonkumuntu is embracing the culture, and it's like, really? Yeah, okay, fine, look around. Maybe people are embracing the culture because black gods are making you do that. But look at kids. Look at us when we were teenagers. These guys never sahlanye that much. And you would think young men are the ones that are foolish here. Young men who are sowing the royal oats all over the show, sleeping around all over with many girls. Even in that debauched state, they still were a lot more respectful of the general cause of women. They still had more mercy on the emotions of girls. They still were more responsive to the tears of women. Like Ukhalagwetu was more appropriately responded to by teenage boyfriends than the men that we are now today married to at 42. Ukhalagwetu abenandaba. It's like they feel as if though we are spoiled. spoiled. So older women are the ones whose tears don't get wiped away, while teenage girls are out being hugged by boyfriends. Our guys, our own black boys, were far more appropriately responsible to the cause of black girls in a way that as they get older, they don't. Meaning that your gods, you see, the thing about any god at all is that he either sanctifies or he humiliates, but he definitely changes character. You cannot meet with a god and stay the same. You cannot meet with a god and stay the same. So when you meet with the God of heaven, you get sanctified. You get made new. You get made a creation where old things pass away, and behold, all things have become new. When you meet with the God of heaven, you go from being a real piece of work to an admirable being. Do you understand? But when you meet with the God of this world, Satan, when you start to develop sentiments, when you start to develop adorations for sorcery, where when you do tarot cards and psychic readings and all these things, and you allow these demons to come in, your character withers. It wears out, right? And then you become worse than before. So where before you were jovial, jocose, and cheerful, now you've got an attitude, you're all grunge, you get my point. Yeah, you can't meet with a god and stay the same. You can't. One god declines while the other god inclines. The one god makes you a better person and refines your character, while the other god just makes you a real piece of work, like I said. So, therefore, given that you can't be with a god and stay the same, the gods of black culture, you can't stay with them and stay the same. And given that they're not the one true God, they therefore walk in the fruit of the sinful nature, and so they decline people's character over time. It causes men that were careful for women's emotions to not care anymore, to let our tears be these heavy things that land with a gong on the floor, a thud on the floor, and then be like, you've broken my tiles, and be with her and love her better than you when you were the one that was ride or die, etc. Black women are the ones that take that nonsense in their stride, and there's a camp of black women that are literally saying, Karabo kunjalo nje. It's like that. Oscar Lwans had this thing, don't fight it. Don't fight it. But like, how in the world are you going to not fight something that has no care for your grandmothers and your mothers and your older sisters? It only cares for young girls, young women that are yet to be traumatized by the insanity of the moral decline of black men. Why would you want to just let that go? All these women that are in the camp of just accepting the status quo or the grain, they are, like I said, in a path of least resistance, hoping that somewhere in the future they are going to successfully manage, do you understand what I'm saying, to overcome tabaure. They feel robbed. Tabaure ka mogare, something is not adding up. Tabaure, there's a vacuum inside them. I don't know how many times I can say this. Very rarely, if not at all, completely, do women who are in polygamous marriages get along. Like we have like examples even in the scriptures of women who were in marriages with one man. They never got along, and the men did not do enough to comfort them. These women had to run to God for help when men were acting a fool. Penina and Hannah are an example. Rachel and Leah are yet another example. Very barely do polygamous marriages ever work out for the women, but the men are the ones that benefit. And the Lord always covered the wife that was being treated badly by the other wife. It was never the husband that successfully intervened on behalf of the wife that is being scorned by another woman. It was always God. God is the one that takes up the cause of women. So much so that the Lord have the backs of abafazi that are at the mercy of polygamy, that he went out of here, so much so that the Lord had to take up the cause of the women. Okay, I'm losing my train of thought because who busy whatever. Yeah, what I wanted to God, yes, he wrestles men that hurt women, thinking that nobody sees, nobody is coming through for them, and the husbands are complacent in doing anything about it. We know with the case of Sarah how it is that Abraham's indiscretion basically put her as a concubine for 2 kings. Here it is that a man has a wife, and yet he is leaving her at the mercy of other men. And it was God who intervened by plaguing Pharaoh. It was God who intervened by plaguing Abimelech. God is the one that has the back of Basadi. The Lord is the one, like the insanity of Vanna, with women doing nothing about it. Nobody can protect us, it appears, other than God himself. So if at all the God of the Bible is the only God that actually cares that women are just being indiscriminately treated by men who feel entitled to them, and women who feel like take the path of least resistance, Karabo, so that you won't be in so much pain over the way that Spusiso is acting tomorrow. Yeah, if God can protect you from Spusiso, why not go to him? These gods of yours of ancestral worship, as in Sizi, guys, these many gods of yours, of multiple deities, have no care for Dabaure. You are not comfortable. And the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob explicitly instructs men not to do certain things to women. And he also gives a special favor to those men who choose to be monogamous. He knows that men are inclined and have a propensity towards polygamy, but he rewards with more favor men who are monogamous. The Lord rewards monogamous men, like it is littered across the scriptures. Not only does he frown upon David with Bathsheba, not only does he frown upon Solomon and his many wives, not only does he frown upon any kind of indiscretion, you get my point, concerning Abafazi, the taking of Sarah by Abimelech and Pharaoh. He also explicitly says, you don't get to be my pastor, you don't get to be my reverend, you don't get to be my deacon, you don't get to be my very exquisite prophet if you are not a husband of one wife, and if you are not above reproach, and if your children are not above reproach. Now let's speak about children. Let's speak about children that are above reproach. Let us briefly speak to the whole topic of kids being above reproach. It's written in God's word that you must teach a child in the way that he should go, and when he is older, he will not depart from it. Kids are taught or trained by not only explicit instruction in written form or taught form with a wand next to a chalkboard, a drawing board, right? But they're also taught by the behavior of adults around. They observe. It's nature and nurture over here. Nurture is you explicitly telling a child, don't steal or obey your parents. But nurture is in acting in a way that a child observes in their environment and then adopts that behavior. Two ways of training a kid. So kids growing up in polygamous households, just like it, you are going to struggle to make them above reproach. Why? Because there is all this beefing and spawning between wives, and there is this man with no discretion in the room over dealing abafazi bakhe. Indoda echate abafazi abaningi, guys, a man that is married to many women, more than one woman. Guys, I'm exhausted, man. Men like this, they just watch the brawling of women. They watch it and they do nothing. Abantwana go and they run to dad when moms are fighting, and the dad just stands back on some like literally men who have got many wives vanjalo. They don't even intervene appropriately in the circumstance, or they take the side of one woman because they favor them over the other. And unfortunately, it tends to be the women that came next later, that are younger, that get favor from this guy. The 25-year-old is going to be more loved than the 40-year-old wife that was there, ride or die, from the very get-go. And so the 40-year-old woman is going to be ignored, seen as an angry black woman. And when a man is not treating his wife well, or even able to mediate between his many wives, while these many wives are brawling in front of kids, and they are treating their kids differently from each other, like these kids they are not impartially treated. They're not impartially treated by the parents in question that are with limited discretion. Yes, with little discretion. Sorry, yeah. These kids by nature, sorry, yeah, it is nature. Where you are, no, it's nurture. Okay, nurture is your environment around. Nature, I would say, then the training and instruction with a wand on a board, right? A wand pointing to a board where you have put instructions for a child. The kids will, by the behavior of their parents and by the circus that they keep on observing in the household, then learn by influence. They will learn by influence, and so they will not be above reproach. Boy children in that ecosystem will think it's okay to treat women like that, and girl children will also, like I said, path of least resistance. And this path of least resistance, seeing as it is a least resistance to demon gods that aren't really, the likelihood of your girl children growing up in a household like that, choosing God Almighty on high at the expense of demonic gods is very low. Your daughters are going to think it's okay for them to be treated like this from the very onset, from the very bottom, in the very beginning. Bana ba banyana are going to think, for this to be your life. Like, daughters are not going to expect love. And when, as a daughter, you don't expect love, you say that God cares more for men instead of for women. You basically lie. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like religions or texts that proliferate the sentiment that God is okay with certain ways in which men behave give him a bad name. And it also disincentivizes women from turning to him truly. Because apparently you've seen one God, you've seen them all. But once you've seen the God of the Bible, once you have seen the God of the Bible, you have seen the God that rescued Sarah from Abimelech and Pharaoh, even though Abraham was not acting appropriately towards Sarah. Now this filter is like crazy ridiculous because the lights are dimming. Anyway, you also see the God that had the back of Hannah after Penina was mocking her. So basically the God that, when a woman is lamenting that she's been treated badly because her husband is lacking discretion in terms of mediating between his many wives type thing, God will be the mediator. When a woman is dealing with a man that won't listen to her when she's speaking, she will be rather trained that it is possible for you to walk out of a situation of that nature because it's abusive. Because the God of the Bible insists that men listen to your wives. Otherwise, your prayers are going to be hindered. The God of the Bible says, love your wives the way that Christ loved the church. And Christ is jealous for us. Do you understand? He expects us to be faithful to him and have no other gods. And so, and in and of himself, he will be uniquely protective of us, given that we have chosen him as God. Therefore, like I said, monogamy is like a whole thing. Monogamy is like a whole thing. Like, while the Lord might make concessions and allowances for polygamy, he recognizes how detrimental to the emotions of women it is. He also made it clear that once, King Adam and Eve's fall, right, Eve, from now on, her desire will be for her husband. So a woman will be basically very docile to a man's whims, all of them, at the expense sometimes even of her spirituality. While a man will lord it over with an iron fist over a woman at the expense of his own spirituality. But godly men and women recognize the importance as men to love women as Christ loved the church, and as women to refuse to respect and obey and make yourself humble under a man that is ungodly. He does not expect that of us. And when you go to the Lord, not only do you have protections that women generally lack, okay, at the hands of men who insist that they can polygamously still have like multiple wives all over these streets. Who imagine that they can polygamously just carry as many wives as they want in their backsacks, and without God having any qualms with it. It's a faulty way of thinking. It's erroneous, like in the worst way, and it is destructive to the souls of women. It is destructive to the souls of men. It is destructive to the souls of children, and God implores you to flee from it if that's the status quo. And black women, because you have loved your gods, you have therefore no protections against the entitled state of our men. Okay, so the filter is looking really horrible right now. Let me either go inside or find some other way. Yeah, okay, I'm inside now, and even though the sun has set, I'm still wearing shades because we're dealing with shady issues. Anyway, whatever now, of course, y'all know this is a filter. Where did I last end off? I believe I was speaking about the acceptance of insanity by women. I did highlight when I was still in the street over there that the path of least resistance is killing women. The path of least resistance is killing men. And this path of least resistance is insisted upon by Satan. I used the scriptures, I used the Bible reading from the King James Version when I was still in the car to help you understand that what's going on with black culture, y'all need to get that a little leaven leavens the whole lump. Within the black community, there is this whole sense of camaraderie, whatever, ubuntu, wada, have each other's backs, fish paste, and protect our men. We get it. We totally understand it. But the uncomfortable issue with protecting our men is that it's just our men that apparently need protection. The scriptures make it clear that true religion is the taking care of widows and of orphans. Widows are women, orphans are children. So basically take care of women and children. Everybody needs protection. because this world can be a dangerous place. But more than anything, God highlights very exquisitely that those that are most in need of protection are women and children. So that you can understand that the God that you serve, black people, is not the one true God. Even though you keep on mixing ancestral worship with Christianity. Only look at the fact that in the black community there is this poignant call to protect men. It's weird. It's weird. You ought see it as such. Because who needs protection according to God more than any other single demographic are women and children. Because God made who? Men. To do what? Protect what? Everything and everyone else. God built men to protect society. He made them in order that they might have all that muscle put to good use in the shielding of women and children. So whenever you're dealing with a culture that insists upon the protection of a group of people that have been given rather the rod or rather the scepter or rather the baton to protect, you can tell, therefore, on that day that something's upside down. And in black culture, we are the single most ridiculous, the single most ridiculous race when it comes to the way we think about men. Only look in America, for instance, okay? There is like a whole challenge with, what do they call, like white supremacy, if you want to call like, and a lot of people are lamenting about how it is that black men in America are treated, alright? And then there was like a whole movement raised up from the ground to protect black lives. And it is evident from the Black Lives Matter movement that it's not so much Black Lives Matter, but black male lives matter. Because when it comes to black women, there's literally not as much uproar whenever they are killed, whenever they are massacred, and whenever they are afflicted, as there is uproar against black men. And the fact that black men can take this in their stride, where it is that everybody's out here crying and complaining about how it is that all black men are so badly treated, okay? At the expense of black women, the fact that black men are not uncomfortable with the lack of protection of black women, while the whole world insists upon their protection. It's like, what is going on over there? You're namby-pamby. What is happening? I can't stand my background. I'm trying to cover it with limited prosperity, but being in the car is not even in the slightest very helpful at all. I could go to the car, could I? Just to make sure that I'm gonna be so cold. I'm gonna be so cold, like back there. But in the car, I don't have to deal with me shuffling around in terms of my background like this. I can't stand this environment, this ecosystem. It's not conducive. It's not catering to what I'm trying to do here. It's not giving, and I have a power bank that appears to be helping my agenda along. My battery's sitting on 26%, so maybe I should just go outside. I don't know. What do you think? Going once, going twice, and sold to moving outside.